You should have got a coffee, man. The coffee here is great.
I got coffee from my girlfriend this morning.
Hey, when you were in the military, did you deploy?
I did not. I did a lot of active exercises.
Yeah.
With series of different units. I worked with some Canadians, some South Koreans, some Mexicans, a couple British and Italian guys, but that was about it.
You know, the conversation that I wanted to talk about today, or have today rather, is the necessity of profiling. So, you know, if you're in a foreign theater or if you're working in a military capacity, clearly you have a designed objective in terms of who you're looking for or dealing with, what your target is. Not that the people that we come across in security are targets.
Totally.
But there's a conversation that tends to always come up when you're working in a retail setting, when you're working in a capacity of maybe property management, any of that type of stuff, working in security, where security guards are often either insinuated or accused of profiling. So my question today is, where do you draw that line? Can you draw a line, or is that something that is important? I don't really know how to phrase the question, but is profiling necessary when you're working in law enforcement or you're working in security? What are your thoughts?
It's difficult for me because I see a huge stark difference between law enforcement and military, despite law enforcement being an inherently paramilitary organization.
Yeah.
I think that there is a stark difference because in the military we have these things called Block 1, Block 2, Block 3 environments.
Okay.
I was a combat engineer, so we were trained to work in a lot of scenarios where there may be a civilian presence.
Okay.
So I forget which one, which order it goes, but Block 1, I believe, is this is 100% civilian. This is like a 95% civilian presence with 5% enemies baked in. We don't know where they are.
Yeah.
So you need to have maximum discretion. Block 2 is, this is a city full of hostiles. We haven't had the chance to clear the civilians. Okay. Block 3 would be everything from here on out is hostile.
Okay.
So that kind of determines the discretion I would have whenever it comes to making those profiling decisions. And as a combat engineer, you know, we build them, we break them, we find what's breaking you. We did mine sweeping, lots of mine sweeping. And we had the saying, 1 + 1 = 2, or 1 + 1 = IED. If you see disturbed earth, okay. If you see disturbed earth and it goes in a trail off the road, that could mean something.
Pretty easy to deduce. There's probably going to be an issue.
Yeah, there's going to be something fun there for you to find. In the terms of law enforcement, it's very difficult because we see this now with the huge innovation of AI. New York tried to use AI to identify faces at CCTV cameras around cities, but it was mistargeting African American people because their darker complexion made it harder for the AI to determine certain facial features.
Bone structure,
wrinkles, everything. It just made it extremely difficult. So they shut it down because it was racially profiled.
Yeah.
Whenever it comes down to the individual, the issue I see with profiling is whenever someone goes too long unchecked with it. It's yeah, I'm not going to ramble about it, but I think that it very much comes down to individual discretion and accountability. Checking on your guys and making sure that their biases are in check.
And for security guards, I've worked at retail establishments where 5 black guys come in wearing a shiesty mask. And I'm like, hey,
it ain't COVID anymore.
This is not a good look, you know what I mean? And then they're like, why are you profiling me? It's like, bro, like this is not, But you have to be careful of that. I think that I don't have the answer. This is one of those things where I am bringing up the topic and talking about the subject, but I don't have the answer because, here in Portland, there's a specific demographic of people that are involved in drugs, involved in, there's a look to the people that are houseless or homeless. There's a look to the people that are addicted to drugs. There's a certain way that people, potentially with mental illness or other issues might carry themselves or act. So you do get into a pattern of recognition, or
I think that's
pattern
exactly what you would call it.
Yeah,
I think that's exactly what you would call it.
So what separates pattern recognition from profiling, I guess, would be the question. What's the difference?
The difference is that we aren't a machine. We don't run off of statistical evidence like that. Computers are very binary and, well, this is a statistical probability, so it has to be that. We have the discretion of knowing, of going up and talking to a person and approaching them neutrally in the situation. Like, for example, 5 guys walk into a store with a mask, it's like, if you really are that adamant about it, keep an eye on them on cameras, maybe just chat it up with them casually, but don't block the exits. Don't follow them around, keep around the aisles, watching them and just stalking them, but have a neutral approach, and then if it turns up to nothing, it turns up to be nothing.
It's almost like the equalizer to profiling and pattern recognition is your professionalism in your actions.
Right.
So, any of us, regardless of what the reasoning is, the reasoning behind why you're recognizing certain patterns or why you're profiling certain individuals, the reason behind it could be positive or it could be negative. Where it becomes a problem is how you employ that in your actions.
Exactly.
So are your actions furthering, a negative interaction or a positive interaction? I think that, like you said, you can be in a situation where that alerts you and you have a conversation and you do it from a professional standpoint, not accusatory, not interrogating, but just a general conversation like a normal human being, and it dispels it.
Yep.
So,
and not just that, it's pattern recognition is an internal bias, very much so, and it's something that can develop with time. Jadedness is another word for it, but it depends on how you use it. I see. It's a form of bait. It's a form of bait that only exists inside of you. If you see a situation and your pattern recognition alarms are going off, it's like, okay, I'm being lured in by bait.
Yeah.
Am I going to be a fish and fucking take the bait? Or am I going to kind of pace around it, see what happens, and then determine, okay, that's a hook or that's a dead fish?
And this is one of those conversations where, if you're talking about use of force, it's so easy to say, unless there is a viable, visible, articulable threat, you don't engage. When it comes to pattern recognition and profiling, there's no way to teach someone where that line is and where not to cross that line, but you're so responsible for it, because if you violate someone's rights or if you unjustly profile someone, you're going to be held responsible and accountable for that as a security guard. So
you personally,
right? So we can't give information or ideas in terms of what to do or what not to do, but what would be the most important thing that you would say is to keep in mind when you're working in security?
Remember why you're in security. You're there to de-escalate, you're there to protect, you're there to secure. Actively giving into those biases and that pattern recognition in a potentially negative way, that is seeking out a conflict.
Ooh.
That is actively seeking.
I like that.
That's that bait. You're going for the hook.
Yeah.
If you go for the hook, it's going to cause a scene.
Yeah.
You just got to know when you're the one engaging in the conversation in a bad way versus look for who's going to initiate it. Don't be the one to initiate.
As crazy as it sounds, I really try to get, I keep this for myself, but I also try to tell other officers, as hard as it is, you have to be reactionary. You can never engage. You can never anticipate. You can have that anticipation, but your actions, you only have to be there for a response. You're not to go seeking out something. You're not to go finding the issue to take care of it. You have to be the responsive in terms of your actions. And a lot of times people go, well, if I do that, X, Y, and Z might happen. I get it. But in terms of liability and you not being on the hook for something, if it doesn't go that direction, the only way that you can do that is if you only respond.
Yep, exactly. And, as per escalation of force, there are certain things that you may not even be directly doing that could initiate something. So,
yeah, hand on your gun.
And you may not even be a threat, but all of a sudden, not just the person you may be aggressing, everyone around you. That's an area of effect thing. That's going to do something to the whole area, because that signals, samurais don't draw their swords unless they need to kill, etc.
I like that. Yeah.
You don't want to be that guy.
All right, guys, I want to know what you think in terms of pattern recognition and profiling. Is it a needed positive for private security, or is this a problem? Is it something that needs to be addressed? How can we train? How can we train officers to not violate these two aspects, but also not put themselves or the property or the people that they're working with or working for in harm's way by not reacting to things that honestly could be an actual threat. I want to know what you think. If you haven't, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we appreciate you being here. Be great.